Hey, Breaking Points. Marshall here. We've got a great Thanksgiving dinner table themed conversation today. I'm with Alex Kantrowitz, friend of Breaking Points and the Realignment podcast. Congrats, by the way, Alex, on the big technology newsletter crossing 100,000 subscribers. Cannot recommend it enough. Is there anywhere else folks should look at your work if they find this conversation compelling?
Thank you, Marshall. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Substack is great. It's big technology on Substack. And if you're watching on YouTube, actually, I'm starting to put some YouTube content out there. So would love to see you there. You could just type in my name, Alex Kantrowitz, in the search bar and subscribe to the channel.
Great. Yeah, this is the fourth or fifth time we've done this. So I definitely think folks are into your work. Okay, let's just talk about the obvious conversation everyone's going to be thinking about at the dinner table this week. Why is it that every other day we see tweets saying that Twitter is about to go down, stop functioning, but the next day it's still going? Drama with Elon Musk aside, like what's actually going on in the industry with these claims?
It's pretty amazing, right? And I think this has sort of been something consistent from the moment I started covering Twitter, where people had been saying Twitter's dead, it's not vibrant enough, it's under the wrong leadership, the policies are wrong, and therefore the network is over. And one of the biggest tells that they're lying or completely wrong is they always share their Twitter is dead takes on Twitter. I have a rule. If you write an article that says Twitter is dead and you post that link on Twitter, you can't take that seriously at all. And that's largely what's happened here. The reason why people are saying it is because Musk has cut so many people under his leadership at Twitter in a very short amount of time, including people who you would imagine are pretty essential to keeping the site up. That includes site reliability engineers who maintain the systems to make sure that Twitter doesn't fail whenever it updates software or whenever it gets a huge load of users, for instance, during the World Cup. So people have been nervous that the site will break because there's just not enough people to keep it up. Obviously, it's still kicking, and I've definitely seen some breakdowns, like some parts of the comment infrastructure seems broken to me over time. But that's largely the main worry, is that the site will just not be able to function technically. And then there's this whole group of secondary worries that because of a lack of content moderation, because of this very confusing Twitter Blue verification process, that Twitter will just be functionally unusable, and then therefore it's over. But so far, none of these worries have proven out as anything that's been anywhere close to the amount of hysteria that there's been around them.
And then there's a second part of this question then, which is when you see people tweet these, Twitter is going to be done tomorrow morning, with your warning kept in mind as well too, they'll say, hey, maybe check me out on Mastodon or another social media platform that's kind of Twitter-esque. So can you describe what the quote unquote like Twitter alternatives look like? And why is it that any listener or viewer who goes to check out Mastodon right after this conversation isn't probably going to have a very good time? Like what's going on there?
Absolutely. So I think that people are generally incentivized to say that Twitter's going to be finished shortly when they're sharing a link to their presence on another platform, whether that's Mastodon, whether that's Hive, or I think it's called Post.news, or whether that's even Instagram or Substack. The more catastrophic you can make it sound like the situation is at Twitter, the better of a chance you might have of people coming over and finding you on these other platforms. So that being said, why are people pushing people to other platforms? In the case of Substack and Instagram, I think that's largely to build followings that they're going to use alongside Twitter. But I think the key question is what's going on with these, quote unquote, Twitter replacements. The main among them is Mastodon. Mastodon is sort of a distributed Twitter. So you sign up using a bunch of different interlinked servers. These servers can do weird things like block each other. So if you're on one server, maybe the home timeline that you have doesn't include any tweets from the Mastodon server that you don't like. And the idea is basically it's a Twitter alternative. It's decentralized. And it's a way to join groups and communities whose, content moderation preferences might match your own, and also a way to sort of, tweet or toot or publish, whatever they call it, not under the auspices of Elon Musk. I think that's the main appeal to people. Now, the problem with Mastodon in particular is that it's extremely difficult to use. As I mentioned, you sign up for a server. You don't just go to mastodon.social or whatever it is and sign up for Mastodon. And you have to basically go ahead and build your own follow list again. You may or may not be able to find users on different servers. I, for instance, searched for one user that I knew was there, couldn't find her. And of course, like the user interface is terrible as well. So sorry, I can keep going on this. Mastodon also just has less security. Twitter still has people working on security. Mastodon doesn't have as much security. And it also does some really weird things. In some cases, if you mention somebody in a direct message, it actually includes them in a direct message, and they can read all the direct messages that you sent beforehand. So if you're talking about someone and you just want to like point to their profile, next thing you know, they can read all those messages. So for all this hard time that we've given Twitter over the years, and it certainly deserves a good deal of criticism, one of the most useful things Mastodon has done is show how thoughtful Twitter has been in a lot of the stuff that they've built there. So long story short, it's something that people, might be using to increase their status on Twitter, or maybe they're hopeful they can build an alternative profile to insulate themselves from what could happen to Twitter. But that being said, the dreams are much, much further out than the actual reality is right now. Reality pretty disappointing compared to what the dreams of Mastodon are when you hear from the boosters.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the big sum up here is the past few years we've seen different ideologies. So in the case of post Elon Musk acquisition Twitter, you've got kind of center left to left folks saying, I don't want to be part of Elon Musk's Twitter for a variety of reasons, both good faith and bad faith. But that hasn't spawned like a mass migration of users to alternate platforms. And the same thing would seem to be true in the case of conservatives who said that the pre-Elon Musk Twitter was full of censorship and was biased against them. It wasn't as if Truth Social or other conservative-leaning platforms really blew up. So at the end of the day, are users of social media sites just looking for a space to hang out? Is that just like the deeply unsexy truth, which breaks any kind of ideological pitch you can make for an alternative?
Yeah, they're looking for a place to build status. I think that's sort of the core part of what social media is about for a lot of people, is how do I build status? And have you guys had Eugene Wei on the Realignment before? He's this former Facebook employee, really interesting theorist about the way that social media works. And he basically says that humans are like kind of status hungry apes, and they will continue posting on a social platform as long as they continue to build status there. And so one of the things about Twitter is that Twitter has lots of people, 100 million plus that are there every day. And so if you build a following on Twitter, you're building status, real status that is worth something in the world. Now, if you go to Mastodon or if you go to Truth Social, you go to any one of these different types of alternatives, you're now talking to a much smaller audience. So not only is the usability poorer, and you're probably getting less good information in your timeline, but you're much less incentivized to post there. And it really is this sort of virtuous cycle, maybe the opposite of whatever that is, right? Because you end up, if the power users are less incentivized to post on any of these smaller networks because they're going to get less status out of it, then the actual user experience is going to be worse. One of the interesting things that's come out about Twitter over the past few months is that like you have 10% of users doing 90% of the tweets. So it's actually, the social networks are all powered by really small numbers of people who are just kind of addicted to posting. And you need to create incentives for those people to post. And Twitter has that. Twitter has large audience. Mastodon, Truth Social, whatever they might, Parler, whatever the others might be. They take off. People have said it's not because it's not as fun to troll the other side. That might be one thing, but really it is because every single time you make a post there, you're getting much less out of it than when you make a post on a social network with many more people, because that could be more people to end up seeing your video, listening to your podcast, subscribing to your blog, or following your every thought that you put out there on Twitter. So, when it comes to, are people looking for a place to hang out? Yes, I think that's definitely true. But they're also looking for a place that they can hang out with and influence as many people as possible and use for their marketing purposes as much as possible. And that, Twitter has, I think, I love how Mark Zuckerberg referred to it as a clown car that drove into a gold mine. What they did was the original invention. They were early on in these short messaging feeds that worked really well for a certain purpose. It's continued to work well, despite itself this entire time. I don't know if you can name 1 week that Twitter's been managed since it was managed well since it was founded, but it continues to thrive because it A, hit on that early invention, and B, became a place where more and more people would go to for that invention. So it ended up snowballing in terms of the user base, and then eventually became unstoppable. And one of the most interesting things, if you think about it, is 5 years ago, if you told me Facebook or Twitter, everyone would take that blue Facebook app. But right now, it's not exactly that clear, because Twitter feed is way more vibrant than Facebook. It's the
Facebook still makes more money though. So
yeah,
there's this incredibly awkward dynamic that everyone has to sort through. Alex, this has been really great. Wanted to give people just a broad perspective of these ever-present dynamics in Twitter's future. This is definitely going to be something that people are going to be thinking about going into next year. People can find you at the Big Technology Substack, the Big Technology Podcast, where you listen to podcasts, and of course your YouTube channel, which ideally is linked in the show notes, but you could also just search Alex Kantrowitz on YouTube in your search bar to get access to further coverage of these issues. Thank you so much for joining us on Breaking Points.
Thank you, Marshall. Great to be here. Big Breaking Points fan, so this is fun.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.